my monthly manga reading log for January. I read 51 volumes from 9 different series as well as 2 manhwa series. And I'm going to go through and talk about each series. There will be timestamps, so if I'm talking about a series that you're not interested in, you can feel free to skip to a different section, and after going through my January reads, I'll share some of the series that I'm planning to read in February. But I'll have links in the description below to my anime list, where I track all the manga I read and anime I watch, as well as my rankings for each one. So you can find my profile over there, and also a link to my Instagram account where I share my current reads and thoughts on them in my posts and stories. But here are my January reads. First is Haikyu. I read volumes 33 to 45. I'm sure everyone knows this series. It's a shonen sports series about volleyball, following an underdog high school volleyball team. There's a boy who is short, who fell in love with volleyball in middle school but didn't have many opportunities or people to train with. And he finds out when he gets into high school that he's going to be on the same team as a middle school rival who is a taller, more talented player than he is. But the story is so good. Tons and tons of really fantastic characters. I had watched all 4 seasons of the anime, and I was content not to read the manga, to just be anime only. But after hearing that the final 13 volumes were going to be adapted into only 2 movies, I decided to read them, knowing that a lot of the content will likely be either skimmed over or cut out entirely. I was really impressed with how the story was wrapped up. The ending is really satisfying, and for me, it was just really heartwarming. I felt so proud of all these boys, how hard they worked, how far they had come. But the final 4 volumes were so good. I did pick up just these 4 volumes after reading all of this because I love this section so much. I was literally grinning and laughing through the entire final 3 volumes. But I absolutely love the humor in this series. I was also really impressed with how the movements of the players and movement of the ball were depicted. Because with action and sports series, they really have to get the movements down right. Otherwise, it really affects the read-through. But in Haikyu, you could really feel how fast the ball was moving, how hard or soft it hit the net or floor. I thought I wouldn't like the art style, like the character designs, but I started in the 33rd volume and the art style was good. I think in the earlier volumes, it could be a little more rough, but then improves maybe, but I'm not sure because I started in the last third of the series. But I'm really glad I read this final section of the story, and now I'll be able to enjoy the movies regardless of what all is included. Next is Kaiju number 8. I read volumes 1 to 9 and into what will be volume 10 on the Shonen Jump app. This is a shonen action sci-fi series that is set in a time that big monsters or kaiju come into cities and attack people. The main character is a man in his early 30s who wanted to fight on the defense force, but failed the exams and wound up on the cleaning crew that cleans up the remains of the defeated kaiju. So when I first heard the premise, I thought it wasn't going to be one I'd enjoy. Then some friends recommended it, but I still thought maybe this series is getting overhyped. Then my husband read it and said he thought I'd like it. So I finally got into it and I really liked it. The comedy is so good. There were so many parts that just had me laughing, but then there are some really serious and more sad parts as well. All the characters are really likable. Hoshina, Gen, and Kafka are my favorites. I am planning to collect the physicals of this one, but I'm not in a hurry to get them because I have already read past what has been released in the English physicals. I'm also curious how long this series will be because it could start wrapping up after a few more volumes, or it could go on, so we'll see, but I'm excited to see where the story goes from here. And I saw it is getting an anime in 2024, so looking forward to that as well. Love of Kill. I read volumes 8 to 10. I was super excited to get this new release. So before reading it, I also reread the 2 volumes leading up to it. This is a josei action drama series that follows an assassin who seems to have an obsession with this female bounty hunter. So he repeatedly interferes with her work so he can continue to interact with her. After volume 7, the series starts to go in a different direction. And then again, in volume 10, the story is kind of going in another direction. There are some major developments in this latest volume, and it ends on a cliffhanger, so I'm really anxious to get the next volume. I've been really happy with the character development through the whole series, getting to see the different characters' backstories and finding out what it is that's motivating each of them. But the series did just come to an end in Japan with volume 13, so I'll be really looking forward to getting the final 3 volumes, and I really hope everything in this story will get wrapped up neatly. But I really like this series and recommend it, and I'm looking forward to this mangaka's next work. Natsume to Natsume. I read volume 1. This is a comedy slice of life shoujo series. It follows a high school boy who has a scary face, so he's always being misunderstood by his classmates, but he has a couple friends who know that he is truly a very nice guy. He has a childhood friend with the same name as him, who is a sweet, pretty, popular girl who was always there for him, so he's constantly trying to become a better person so he can become like a hero like she is to him. I feel like there will be romance later on in the series, but in this volume, we're still meeting all the characters. But this series is by the same mangaka that did The Girl with the Sanpaku Eyes, which I haven't read, but would probably give an idea about the art style. But I came across this series by chance on Twitter. I saw volume 6 being advertised and thought, I'd like to meet this guy who's making this crazy face. But I absolutely love his expressions combined with his kind attitude, and we constantly see his inner monologue throughout, so it's a fun read so far. Tsuiraku JK to Haijin Kyoushi. I read volumes 1 and 2. This is a shoujo age gap romance series that follows a high school girl and her physics teacher. It starts with the girl on the rooftop of the school looking like she's gonna jump because of being rejected by the boy she likes. And the teacher comes to stop her by telling her to fall in love with him instead. Honestly, I don't mind age gap romance series, but my least favorite is usually student-teacher romances because of the mentor position the teacher is supposed to be put in. But I can overlook that when the story is good, the characters are likable, and there's no physical intimacy between them while one of the parties is underage, which I can't vouch for this one because I've only read the first 2 volumes. I do really like the teacher. He's really funny, and the girl is likable as well. But so far I can't see what the adult man would see in this high school girl to be interested in her romantically. And I'm usually not into stories that characters joke about taking their lives so lightly. But I was planning to read more of this series last month, but kind of forgot about it when I switched to a different series and did a couple buddy reads. So I am going to try to read more of it in February to decide what I think about it. Tsubaki-chou Lonely Planet. I read volume 2. This is a shoujo romance series that is completed in Japan at 14 volumes. I'm really happy we have it in English now. I have read it before and I like it a lot. It follows a girl who has to take work as a live-in housekeeper to help her dad with some debts that he's struggling to pay. So she lives with and works for a historical novelist. This does have an age gap romance, so I know that it won't be for everyone, but I do like this one a lot. The main girl is in high school still, but the story isn't predominantly set at school, so I think that's an aspect I do like about this one. But the second volume, we get to know Fumi and Akatsuki a bit more, as well as some of the side characters that we met in the first volume. But I'll be looking forward to the volume 3 release in April. In the Clear Moonlit Dusk, I read volume 2. This is by the same mangaka as the last series. This is an ongoing shoujo high school romance series that follows 2 students, an upperclassman who has a playboy reputation and a girl who is adored by all of her classmates but has never experienced romance before. So it's a super fun read as she has all this innocence and is timid but is able to speak her mind about what she wants when the male lead is very forward and blunt. So this second volume, we see more into their relationship and again, get to know some of the side characters a little more. I have read through volume 4 already, and I think volume 6 has been released in Japan already, but I don't really remember much of what happens next, so this one too I'm really looking forward to the next couple releases in March and June. Will You Marry Me Again If You Are Reborn? I read volumes 1 to 4. This is a completed historical, comedy, drama, romance, tragedy series. It's set in the Showa era with a lot of sections in the 1930s and 40s. It follows a boy and girl through their whole lives from childhood to old age. But throughout the volumes, it skips around quite a bit between past and present. His family has a landscaping company and her family is very poor. So at a young age, she becomes a live-in employee to have a better quality of life. So while the story does follow these main 2, there are a lot of side characters that get introduced and you spend a lot of time getting to know them as well. The first 2 volumes are really cute and sweet and have a lot of humor with little hints that there will be tragedy to follow. And I thought the tragedy elements would mainly have to do with the main couple in their old age, but I should have seen it coming with the time period that there would be content from World War II. And volumes 3 and 4 have a lot of heartbreak and tragedy around that. I cried so much reading the final volumes, but overall, I really enjoyed this series. The story is really good and I got really invested in the characters. This series is by the same mangaka that did Kimi no Koe, which is another series that I like a lot. And in both of these series, I really like the art style and the character designs. But if you get into this one, definitely have some tissues prepared and be ready to cry. Daytime Star. This is a completed drama romance manhwa, 77 chapters. It follows a struggling actress who has just been dumped by her cheating boyfriend, and she tries to focus on and pursue her career and a romance with another actor. I really liked the male lead in this story. His character design is gorgeous, and he's written to be just the perfect man, kind, patient, talented, good at everything. But I actually didn't enjoy this read at all, mainly because the main girl was such a damsel in distress, always crying, always needing the perfect male lead to swoop in and help her. I didn't find their romance believable at all. It's as if he saw her crying and thought, look at this crying girl, I think I'm in love with her. But I also wasn't crazy about the art style. There were a lot of really exaggerated facial expressions, and I didn't like any of the character designs except for the main guy who was super handsome. But the reason I read this is because I saw spoiler panels on Instagram of content from the end of the series, and it really did end up being content only in the final 2 chapters. So I was super disappointed, and by the time I got to that content, I was already too annoyed with the story to appreciate it. Because there is so much better manhwa out there, I wouldn't recommend this one, but if you've seen those spoiler panels too, you might be tempted to read this one just as I was. My Reason to Die. This is an ongoing psychological drama romance manhwa. It follows a girl who does taekwondo who is recovering from an injury, and her relationship with a classmate who is a delinquent. The story is set in high school, and then after a bit, there is a 10 to 12 year time skip to the cast as adults. I like the characters in this a lot. The main girl is a pretty strong and confident character, so I liked that. She's not weak or pathetic. And the main guy is handsome and mysterious. I didn't realize it had a psychological tag until the more recent chapters, and I'm honestly still trying to figure everything out because as the story goes, it gets a little more complex. There are 61 chapters out so far, and the story is right in the middle of a section where you feel like you're about to find something out and it's just out of reach, so I can't tell if the story is going to start to conclude in the coming 10, 20 chapters or if it's got still quite a ways to go. But I'm really curious to see how the creator is going to wrap things up and tie up all the loose ends. But there are definitely bad boy vibes and some crime elements in this one, if that's something that you're looking for, which is something I'm usually looking for. Attack on Titan. I read volumes 1 to 15. I have the Colossal edition, so each one has 5 volumes inside. This is an action shonen series with some gore, horror, political, and military elements. It follows the inhabitants of a walled-in country that lives within these walls to be protected from giant Titan monsters outside the wall who want to eat them. So this genre and premise alone, I thought I'd never read something like this, but this past summer, a friend was pushing me really hard to watch the anime, so I gave it a try, and I got sucked in and binge-watched the entire series and was able to finish it as well as reading the final 3 volumes that conclude the series without seeing any spoilers. And I absolutely loved it. So the past few months I've been picking up the Colossal editions, and last month read the first half of it, and in February we'll be reading the second half. I know some people are anime only with this series, but I wanted to give the manga a try to see what I thought of it and how it compares to the anime. And I'm really enjoying my read through. I like the art style, and especially in these editions, the panels look so good, especially when it's a 2-page spread on these big, bright white pages. I have noticed that the pacing in the manga is a little different at times from the anime, like the order things are revealed. Also, for some scenes in the anime, there was more detail in the anime than the corresponding section in the manga. But then it's the same the other way around as well. Some scenes in the manga have more detail than in the anime. So I'm glad I didn't miss out on any of those details. But strangely, the way some of the characters are portrayed in the manga versus the anime, I'm really appreciating certain characters a lot more. So I think by the time I finish reading this series, I'll have my top 5 favorite characters from the anime, and then my top 5 for the manga I think might be a little different. So we'll see. But I also read Attack on Titan, No Regrets. I read volumes 1 and 2. I've really enjoyed reading this in full color from the hardcover full color edition, which has the 2 volumes as an omnibus. But No Regrets is a prequel story that follows a couple characters from Attack on Titan, Levi and Erwin, before the events of the main story. And this one too had some differences from the anime OVAs. But I highly recommend this one if you're reading the main series because it just gives a little extra details and insight into the history and relationship between the two of them. But those were all my reads from January, excluding random chapters from ongoing series I'm following, the weekly and monthly releases. I believe all of these titles are on my anime list, so you can get more information about them on there. But if you've read any of the series I've mentioned, what did you think of them? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I also wanted to give a little shout out to a few friends on Instagram who read some of these series with me. Kat, thanks for reading Haikyuu with me and helping me split up how much to read so we could speed read through those volumes. Summer, thanks for the manhwa recommendations and letting me both gush and vent as I read them. And Ness, really loving our Attack on Titan read through. Thank you so much for sticking with me as this is quite a bit we're binging through. I really love chatting about the series I'm reading, so if there's anything on my TBR that you've read or are planning on reading, make sure you're following me on Instagram and feel free to send me a message on there. So what I'm planning to read in February, I'm planning to read all my new pre-ordered volumes that are coming in. So Snow White with the Red Hair, Volume 23, A Condition Called Love, Volume 1, Rainbow Days, Volume 2, and then a few buddy reads. So Attack on Titan, volumes 16 to 34. Really excited to finish the series before the anime starts in March. A Silent Voice, volumes 1 to 7. I've had the 2 collector's edition omnibus volumes for a while, so really looking forward to getting into them. And then My Little Monster, volumes 1 to 13. This is another series I've had for a few months that I'm looking forward to getting into. And I'll be sharing my thoughts on all these next month in my next reading log video. But that's all this time for my January manga reading log and February TBR. Thanks for watching.